This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.
Hello, I'm Ryan Kalei-Suji. Thanks so much for tuning in here to Spotlight Hawaii on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. Yunja Denise has the day off, so you're stuck with just me. But of course, it's not just me. It's a guest that we always have here on Spotlight Hawaii. And this morning, we're going to be heading over to Honolulu Hale to catch up with Chair Tommy Waters, council member there. Good morning, Council Chair Waters. Thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Good morning. Happy to join you here again. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We have a lot to discuss, a lot happening on the council, but I want to just kind of begin with what happened overnight in Waikiki with the barricade situation. You represent the Waikiki community on the council, so beyond your role as chair, you also service that area and beyond. But wanted to just, as a broader strokes, talk about the crime that we're seeing in Waikiki. A young man was attacked last week as well at a bus stop. We're just seeing more and more crime with residents in the area concerned. As someone who represents that district, what are your thoughts about what happened last night and the overall situation in the state of Waikiki right now?
Well, I'm really, really alarmed when I heard about what happened last night and what happened the day prior to that with a deadly beating at a bus stop. You know, this has been an ongoing thing in Waikiki, and I've been getting a lot of complaints from my constituents. There was another incident that wasn't really reported where a person was walking through Waikiki with a machete threatening a group of women, and he was run over by an SUV to stop him from using the machete. He got out of the car, and the Good Samaritans got out of the car and tried to detain him, and he ran off. And it took a long time for the police officers to come, and I was really, really concerned. You know, I have 25,000+ residents in Waikiki living there. That's on top of all the hotels, all the workers in the hotels, and all the visitors that come there. And it's just really, really scary. I've been told, and I go through Waikiki daily on my way home from Honolulu Hale to Kaimuki just to check it out. And you know, it's the threat is real, and we see it every day now in the news. And I'm really concerned.
You know, there was efforts that are being made, the Safe and Sound program that you're working in conjunction with, those members, the mayor, as well as Steve Alm and Prosecutor Alm. Can you talk a little bit more? Do you feel that that's enough about the Safe and Sound program, and what more needs to be added in order to ensure the safety of the residents and visitors?
Thank you. And just for our listeners, Safe and Sound is similar to Weed and Seed. And the main part of Safe and Sound is the geographic restriction, which means that if you're arrested or charged with a crime in Waikiki, the judges can order you out of Waikiki, meaning that if you go back to Waikiki, you're violating a judge's direct order to stay out. And the police can arrest you on site just for being back in the geographic location. The problem that I'm encountering is that out of all the arrests, the judges really aren't ordering the geographic restriction. I think they've only ordered 18 geographic restrictions out of almost 250 arrests. So that's really, really a small part. What I've been told through my friends who work in the judicial system is that the prosecutors aren't making an adequate argument as to why these people should be restricted for Waikiki. So the point here is that we really got to work together, our judges, our prosecutors, and our police, and our community, and us here at the Hale, work together to try to enforce these laws. Because to me, it's a really good tool, and it really hasn't been exercised or used enough.
And if we can just expand a little bit on that, I mean, how would that be executed and really enforced? Would it require this individual to ultimately get into trouble again, to get arrested? I mean, how would they identify these individuals? If you can talk a little more about that piece of it.
Absolutely. No, thank you for the question. So if somebody gets arrested in Waikiki, they're taken to court. And if they want to get out either on bail or released on their own recognizance, or in some instances for petty misdemeanors and misdemeanors, they get sentenced right there on the spot. They have a map right there in court that shows the Waikiki, right the borders, which streets, Alawai, Kapahulu Avenue, Kalakaua, right? And the judge can order these people not to come back. And they're given that order in writing. And at that point, they sign acknowledging receipt of this judge's order. And if they come back, the police know them because they arrest the same people all the time, unfortunately, right? We hear about these folks who have 30, 40, 50 arrests. So the police officers know these folks. And if there is an order in place, the police can arrest you on the spot for violating that order and charged again with contempt of court. So that's how it would work. And it's worked in other communities. And we just need the courts to step it up. One of the things that I tried to do, and I'm trying to convince the courts to impose mandatory drug treatment and or mental health counseling, even for these petty misdemeanor crimes, because oftentimes folks who are getting arrested for small crimes are suffering from mental illness, and they need help and they need treatment, and medication actually works. But, there's the carrot and the stick. The carrot is, please take your medication, which oftentimes people don't even recognize that they have a mental illness. So they need the stick, right? They need the judiciary to order it. And we're hoping that the courts and the judges can step up their game and start ordering this, because that's really what it's going to take.
Let's stay in Waikiki, because there's another bill that was recently vetoed and that by the mayor, and that's Bill 43 regarding noise amplification, because he said it was unenforceable. We know that this was something that you had introduced and was looking to really help residents in Waikiki. Your thoughts on the mayor's veto and what you would like to see moving forward with noise ordinances, specifically in that area?
So I was really disappointed that the mayor vetoed the bill. And he cited that it was not enforceable. But, I had introduced the bill 11 months ago, and we had numerous hearings on the bill. The idea we were actually going to buy decibel readers, right? So you can only go above a certain decibel level. That idea actually came from HPD, now retired Major Krikio. Myself, Major Krikio, Senator Moriwaki, who's the senator for Waikiki, and Representative Adrian Tam, who's the representative from Waikiki. We met in Representative Tam's office. We brainstormed the issue, and I drafted the bill. Major Krikio retired, and a new major came in and basically said it's unenforceable. So I actually tried to work with the new major, incorporated whatever he wanted, and still the bill was vetoed. So my at this point, I'm asking the mayor, please work with HPD, come up with proposed legislation. I'll introduce it on behalf of the mayor and the community to get a workable bill. Fact of the matter is, though, there is a law already on the books where you can't have like a boombox. I don't want to just generalize and say it's a boombox law, but you can't have any tape recorded music. These performers oftentimes have tape recorded music that they're using alongside their microphones and singing. So there's laws on the books right now, and I intend next time I talk to the mayor and police chief Logan to say, hey, look, start enforcing the laws already on the books, and in the meantime, we'll work together to come out with a workable solution. Fact of the matter is, and anybody who's gone through Waikiki, you can see you even have 3-piece bands with drum sets and electric guitars, and it's loud. And, last night I was talking to some hotel folks, and they don't like it either. And I've asked them to work with me as well to find a solution.
Well, we'll continue to stay posted and see if there's any resolution there and get an update next time. We want to switch gears now and talk a little more about the conceal and carry permits. Earlier this week, we were able to speak to Chief Logan, and he spoke at length about the concerns that he has of the nearly 600 pending permits. We know that the City Council is also working with Logan and HPD on this in really the sensitive areas, as it's put within the language and the way that you guys are trying to develop this concealed carry permitting and how to move forward with this current legislation. Wanted to get your thoughts about working with HPD on this and how you guys are going to try to create something to manage this conceal and carry new law that's going to be moving forward.
So on November 29th of this year, we had a special hearing. So just backing up, the United States Supreme Court issued an opinion saying that states cannot deny a permit to conceal and carry. Up until then, the Honolulu and pretty much every other county in the state of Hawaii would not allow people to conceal and carry a gun. The United States Supreme Court said that's illegal. You must allow it. However, they did say that states and municipalities can designate certain areas as safe places. So Bill 57 really does that. It outlines where these safe places are. And Bill 57 was introduced by me on behalf of the administration. Mayor Brangiardi and his administration drafted the bill and submitted to us. And we had a hearing on November 29th, and there were dozens of people testifying on both sides. And it really is going to be a balancing act because, again, the United States Constitution and the United States Supreme Court says that people have a right to do this. So even the most staunch advocates for the ability to carry your gun in the Second Amendment agree that there's certain areas like schools, right? I think we all agree that we should not be able to bring a gun to school, right? Courthouses, polling places, government buildings like legislatures or the Hale. But the real sticky part is going to be, and this is where the debate was often centered on November 29th, was at businesses. Should they be banned from businesses like Ala Moana Shopping Center? You can't bring your gun there unless there's a sign that says, hey, guns are welcome. That's what Bill 57 says, and that's what the advocates for the Second Amendment were really upset about. Versus the opposite side of the coin, which would be guns are not welcome unless there's a sign, they're welcome unless there's a sign that says no guns, right? I was recently in Chicago for a legislative conference, and there were signs all over the businesses with a pistol with a slash going through it saying no guns. So other jurisdictions have done that. The mayor's bill would probably be more restrictive, and I think that's what the advocates for the Second Amendment were really upset about. But really, we need to work with the mayor, work with the police department, work with the community to make sure whatever we come up with is balanced. Because ultimately, I think, as in other jurisdictions, the gun advocates will probably sue us. And some of the testifiers even said that straight up, we're gonna sue you. But what I've asked my fellow council members is to work with both sides, sit down, talk story, try to come up with some common ground. And one of the things that came up at the hearing was a prison. That's not in the bill, but it makes sense. Of course, you don't want to bring guns into a prison, right? So there's probably other places just like that we haven't thought of that really should be in the bill. And that's what we intend to do.
Well, beyond just the bill and working through the language and the mechanics of that, as a whole, the conceal and carry law and the way that things are being drawn out throughout the country has really, as you mentioned here, sparked the debate between both sides. Wanted to just get your personal thoughts about how concerned are you with more people having access and being able to carry guns in places in public? Because we saw a debate online happening, when we had this conversation, where many people were wondering, do I call someone if I see someone on the street that has a gun exposed? And Chief Logan did say, yes, it's conceal and carry, which means you have to conceal your weapon. But that also sparked the debate as well. So, your thoughts as we continue to have this discussion about what's allowed and what's not, but overall, what we're going to be seeing with more guns maybe available or being visible in public.
Well, the fact of the matter that there are only 600 pending applications, which is good. In our city, we have over 1 million people. So the fact that there's only 600 is somewhat reassuring. But at the same time, it's really scary. I mean, just look at what happened last night in Waikiki with the gunman barricading himself. And that's really, really scary. Now, the advocates of the Second Amendment are saying, hey, that if there's a situation like that, I want to have my own gun so I can, remedy this situation or take out the shooter themselves. But what concerns me is unless you have proper training like law enforcement does, that you might be putting other people in danger just by having a gun on you, right? Even though you may have a gun, what if somebody who has a mental illness disarms you and takes that gun that's out there at a shopping center or on the street? Um, that's really concerning to me. We have a road rage happens quite a bit, especially during the holidays. So I'm just asking everybody to be calm. I know the traffic's going to be bad, but can you imagine now someone who has a gun who's angry that they got cut off on the street? I mean, I'm really, really afraid that things like that could happen. But at the same time, we got to recognize the Second Amendment and what the Supreme Court of the United States has ordered. So while my personal feelings are like I said, I'm worried and I'm scared. But at the same time, what's the law is the law. We all have to uphold the law.
In speaking with Chief Logan earlier this week, he said one of the things that's a challenge right now is the amount of training that needs to happen for HPD. And so this will have to be added on to the training that officers will have to get in a department that continues to struggle with vacancies. Roughly 360 vacancies remain. What are your thoughts? Do you think HPD is doing enough to fill some of these vacancies, and your overall thoughts about the staffing issues that they have in finding officers right now?
When I first started on the council 3 years ago, the vacancy rate for the police officers was under 200. Then it went up to 300. It was under 300. Then it went up to 300. Then 325. Then 350. Now you're saying that Chief Logan just told you it's 360. So no, absolutely not. They're not doing enough to fill these vacancies, and they need to have more recruit classes. What the council did, we just approved the pay raises for Honolulu Police Department. I think the starting salary is anywhere between $60,000 and $70,000. That's not bad. You could come out of high school and make $60,000 to $70,000. One of the things the prior chief wanted to do was to recruit at the University of Hawaii. My first legal job as a lawyer, I made $32,000. My second legal job, I made $34,000. So the prospect of actually making $60,000 to $70,000 for 18, 19, or 20-year-old, that's really good. But the fact of the matter is, I don't see any advertisements. On TV, we see Maui doing a commercial asking for folks to apply, but we don't see that in Honolulu. Yes, they absolutely need to step it up. I really believe that a patrolling police officer is the best deterrent to crime, right? Had there been a police officer driving by when that person was beaten to death at a bus stop in Waikiki, criminals will run the other way. Law-abiding citizens like you and I, when we see a police officer behind us, even though I'm going 20 miles an hour, I'll step on my brake, right? It's just a natural reaction. That's what happens. Same thing with criminals. If they see a police officer, they run the other way. That's why we need to fill these vacancies as quick as possible. If it means more recruit classes and HPD needs more resources from the council, well, then that's what we'll do. But we need to have them tell us that that's what they need. We did increase HPD's budget by $12 million last year, including $1 million for more patrol. And ultimately, though, I need Chief Logan to come and tell us that that's what they need to increase the amount of recruit classes. Because we heard that, say, 40 people will start and only 19 or so will actually graduate. That's a recruitment problem. It's really scary, though, I have to tell you, that if all the officers who are eligible for retirement actually retire, we're going to be in a world of trouble, and that's really, really scary. And by the way, it's not just HPD, it's the city as a whole. We have 3,000 vacancies in the entire city.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to ask you about that. So if you can just hold that thought about the city vacancies, do you feel that the city is doing enough? And the mayor's administration, we know that there continue to be problems at DPP and just staffing overall to fulfill some of those backlogs there. What more can be done to help fill some of these vacancies at the city level?
So my understanding is the mayor has made it a priority, and you do see more advertisements, whether it be on social media or in the newspaper or other means of advertising. So the mayor has taken this seriously, and I appreciate that very much. But part of the problem was the human resource department. So one of the things that the council did in order to help figure out why the recruitment is taking so long, because I've even heard from directors and deputy directors that the hiring process will take a year or more. To me, by the time the person actually gets the offer from the city, they probably have taken another job, right? I mean, you got to feed your family, you got to eat. So the city council actually, I authored a bill auditing human resources to figure out what the problem is and how we can make it better and streamline that system. So I'm awaiting the results of that audit. And as soon as I get it, I'm happy to talk to you again about what we can do to streamline it. But fact of the matter is the mayor is taking this seriously. And my understanding, again, is that the mayor has worked with human resources to streamline this and cut down the amount of time that it takes to bring new people on.
I want to ask you a little bit more about the relationship with the mayor over these past few years. You've had now a number of years under your belt in this leadership position. How have things been with this working relationship with Mayor Blangiardi and his administration, and as well as with the council as a whole? We know that you'll be getting some new colleagues that will be joining you with this last election, and new members being selected to join you on the council. If you can speak to the relationship with the mayor and then also as the council as a whole.
No, I think we enjoy a really good relationship with the mayor, the council, and myself. I really do believe that in order to solve any problems, we got to work together, right? We can't just do it alone. We really, really do have to work together. And on the council, we have a really good relationship with each other. Now, the Sunshine Law is a difficult, I don't want to say it's an impediment to working together, but in many respects it is. But the fact of the matter, we all get along pretty well. It's not contentious at all on the floor when we do have our debates. And good ideas can only come out unless we talk about it and discuss it. Um, and my understanding is the rest of the council has a good relationship with the mayor as well as the managing director and the various department heads. Again, we gotta talk. That's the key. Got to talk to each other. You got to work with each other to try to solve these problems.
Well, we are running out of time, but I quickly want to pivot, if we can, to a topic that will require some time, but hopefully we can get some thoughts in here on Red Hill. Wanted to get your thoughts about what's happening there. Have you had any direct communication as the leader of the council with the Navy leadership? And what are your thoughts about this cleanup process? Do you think that it is being handled correctly and in a manner that you are accepting or understand the challenges that are presented in front of them? But what are your thoughts on what the Navy leadership has done thus far?
No, I'm very, very disappointed and I'm appalled at what's happening. The good news is that they're agreeing to defuel those tanks, but not fast enough, in my opinion. So one of the things, as I mentioned, I did go to a legislative conference, the National Organization of Counties, and they put me in touch with someone from the Navy who actually from the Pentagon, who I had an appointment with this person in December, but unfortunately they canceled. So it's moved off to January. But I take this really, really seriously. I'm gonna meet with the person from the Pentagon and figure out how we can be more careful and more expeditious so that these types of accidents don't happen. The other thing is there should be some sort of reparations, right? I mean, they polluted our drinking water. And when we met with Ernie Lau and his team, the fuel is traveling throughout the aquifer. It's not just the area near Pearl Harbor. They're finding fuel in other places in the large aquifer, which means it's moving. That's terrifying to me, right? I mean, it's terrifying. So what's the Navy going to do about it? We have plans to build a desalination plant. I mean, we have to be proactive rather than reactive. So how about the Navy pay for that, right? I mean, yeah, so I'm looking forward to that meeting with the Pentagon official and really have a deep conversation about what they're gonna do to remedy this situation. And so far, I got to tell you, what they're doing is not working.
Yeah,
It's
just
not
to
working.
stay a little more on, who's actually paying for this, because we have, of course, had Ernie Lau in this program as well, and he talks about the process and the amount of money it costs to dig new wells, to look for other sources, and the burden of the payment overall, and all of that, of what it's going to cost, and potentially fall down to the users, and those who ultimately will have to pay for that will be the taxpayers. Your thoughts about how that would all just come about? Is that a conversation that you're going to have with the congressional delegation? How do you force, I guess, the military to pay for some of these things that may not be directly related to Red Hill, but is a side effect of what has to be done because of it?
That's the exact topic that I intend to have with that Pentagon official. Because as it is now, the city council put in millions of dollars to do these experimental wells. Um, but it really, ultimately, we all pay federal and state and city and county taxes, right? So it's ultimately gonna fall on all of our shoulders. But the city our only source of revenue is your property taxes. That's it. And we're barely balancing the budget as it is with your property taxes. So if you have to add on, a desalinization plant and new wells, and those are going to cost millions and millions of dollars, it really should be borne by the federal government. So, as you said, how do we force them to do it? We do need to work with our federal delegation. But again, that's the exact conversation I'm going to have with that Pentagon official. My understanding is that this Pentagon official uh, understands that and is willing to work with us. So once I have that meeting and have more information, I'm happy to come back and report to you.
All right, we are closing out the show and the week here. Just wanted to provide you one last opportunity. Any final thoughts for viewers tuning in here? We know this is, of course, the holiday season as well. A lot happening. But your final message to viewers, as well as those you represent in your community this morning.
Well, oh, thank you. Well, mele kaliki maka and hauoli makahiki ho. Be safe out there. Be patient out there. Love your friends and families and hug them and tell them how much you love them, because life is precious. Enjoy our beautiful weather, although it's been raining, but it's still beautiful out there. We live in the most beautiful place on earth here in Hawaii, and we have the most beautiful people here. So I just want to say happy holidays and be safe, everyone. And thank you very, very much for inviting me to be on your show.
Yeah, thanks so much. Always great catching up with you. And thanks for spending time and taking our questions this morning. Thanks. Aloha.
Yeah. Aloha.
Well, great to hear from Chair Tommy Waters. We covered a bunch of issues that the City Council is tackling, everything from, of course, the conceal and carry laws and the conversations that's happening about these safety zones, as well as just putting together what that framework will look like, working directly, of course, with HPD. We also heard from him about some of the staffing issues that continue to plague not only HPD, but the City Council, but the City administrative offices and the different departments that fall within there, the city council, as well as all throughout the department in the city, knowing that there are a lot of vacancies out there and that more money could ultimately need to be allocated in order to fill some of these vacancies that we're seeing. We also, of course, as you heard briefly there at the end, talked more about Navy and the Navy's response to Red Hill. You heard from him that he is not satisfied with the way things have happened and transpired thus far in terms of the cleanup, and that more needs to be done. And so that he intends to meet with a Pentagon official to get more information and to press him on who ultimately will be paying for some of the consequences that we've experienced because of the Red Hill situation. We will be talking for the very first time on this program to Rear Admiral Wade on Monday. Of course, he has been tasked with the duty of defueling Red Hill and has become that point of contact for the Navy. We're going to talk to him about the efforts. We know that there are many in the community who are still unhappy with the response, with everything that has happened, and some of the malfunctions that have happened during this process. We want to get more information, of course, about what their plan is, that overall timeline. It should be a very interesting conversation. We invite you to join us here on Monday at 10:30 for that conversation directly focused on Red Hill. Please enter your questions as we will try to get through as many as we possibly can, because we know that this is a hot topic that continues to be discussed within our community. Until Monday, we hope that you have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday for another episode of Spotlight Hawaii. Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Longstrugs.